Oh, hello, great readers. I'm Belchan.
I'm Nimakung.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you a part of Great Expectations.
As.
Great Expectations. Charles Dickens. Chapter 47. Some weeks passed without bringing any change. We waited for Wennick, and made no sign. If I had never known him out of Little Britain, and had never enjoyed the privilege of being on a familiar footing at the castle, I might have doubted him. Not so for a moment. Thrilling him as I did, my worldly affairs began to wear a gloomy appearance, and I was pressed for money by more than one creditor. In my own pocket, and to relieve it by converting some easily spared articles of jewellery into cash. Money from my patron in the existing state of my uncertain thoughts and plans. Therefore, I had sent him the unopened pocketbook by Herbert, to hold in his own keeping, and I felt a kind of satisfaction whether it was a false kind or true. I hardly know in not having profited by his generosity since his revelation of himself. As the time wore on, an impression settled heavily upon me that Estella was married. Fearful of having it confirmed, though it was all but a conviction, I avoided the newspapers. To speak of her to me was rent and given to the winds. How do I know? Why did you read this? Commit that not to some inconsistency of your own last year, last month, last week. It was an unhappy life that I lived, and its one dominant anxiety, towering over all its other anxieties, like a high mountain above a range of mountains, never disappeared from my view. Still, no new cause for fear arose. Let me start from my bed as I would, with the terror fresh upon me that he was discovered. Let me sit listening, as I would with dread, for Herbert's returning step at night, lest it should be fleeter than ordinary, and winged with evil news for all that, and much more to like purpose. The round of things went on, condemned to inaction and a state of constant restlessness and suspense. I rowed about in my boat, and waited, as I best could. There were states of the tide when, having been down the river, I could not get back through the chafed arches and starlings of old London Bridge. Then, I left my boat at a wharf near the Custom House, to be brought up afterwards to the Temple Stairs. I was not averse to doing this. People there, from this slight occasion, sprang two meetings that I have now to tell of. One afternoon, late in the month of February, I came ashore at the wharf at dusk. I had pulled down as far as Greenwich with the ebb tide, and had turned with the tide. It had been a fine bright day, but had become foggy as the sun dropped, and I had had to feel my way back among the shipping, pretty carefully, both in going and returning. I had seen the signal in his window. All well, as it was a evening, and I was cold. I thought I would comfort myself with dinner at once. To the temple. I thought I would afterwards go to the play. The theatre way, mister. Wopsle had achieved his questionable triumph was in that waterside neighbourhood. It is no way now. And to that theatre I resolved to go. I was aware that Mr. Wopsle had not succeeded in reviving the drama. But, on the contrary, had rather partaken of its decline. He had been ominously heard of through the playbills as a faithful black, in connection with a little girl of noble birth, and a monkey, and Herbert had seen him as a predatory tart of comic propensities, with a face like a red brick, and an outrageous sat all over bells. I dined at what Herbert and I used to call a geographical chop house. Tablecloth, time in dozing over crumbs, staring at gas, and baking in a hot bath of dinners. By and by, I roused myself and went to the play. There, I found a virtuous boatswain in His Majesty's Service, a most excellent man, though I could have wished his trousers not quite so tight in some places. As though he was very generous and brave, and who wouldn't hear of anybody's paying taxes. Though he was very patriotic. He had a bag of money in his pocket, like a pudding in the cloth, and on that property married a young person in bed furniture, with great rejoicings. The beach to rub their own hands and shake everybody else's, and sing full. A certain dark complexioned swab. However, he wouldn't fill, or do anything else that was proposed to him. Figurehead proposed to two other swabs to get all mankind into difficulties. Half the evening to set things right. At black gaiters and red nose, getting into a clock with a gridiron and listening and coming out. He had overheard. This led to Mr. as a plenipotentiary of great power direct from the Admiralty, to say that the swabs were all to go to prison on the spot, and that he had brought the boatswain down the Union Jack. A slight acknowledgement of his public services. The boatswain, and when for the first time, respectfully dried his eyes on the Jack, and entering aft, and addressing Mr. Wopsle as Your Honour, solicited permission to take him by the fin. Mr. Wopsle, conceding his fin with a gracious dignity, was immediately shoved into a dusty corner, while everybody danced the hornpipe, and from that corner, surveying the public with a discontented eye, became aware of me. The second piece was the last New Grand Comic Christmas pantomime, in the first scene of which it pained me to suspect that I detected Mr. Red Curtain French for his hair, engaged in the manufacture of thunderbolts in a mine, and displaying great cowardice when his gigantic master came home very hoarse to dinner. But he presently presented himself under worthier circumstances, for of an ignorant farmer who opposed the wishes of his daughter's heart, by purposely filling up on the object, in a flour sack, out of the first floor window where some the sententious enchanter, and he, coming up from the interposed rather unsteadily, after an apparently violent journey, proved to be Mr. Wopsle in a high-crowned hat, with a necromantic work in one volume under his arm. The business of this enchanter on earth being principally to be talked at, than at, but it at, danced at, and fashed at with fires of various colours. He had a good deal of time on his hands, and I observed, with great surprise, amazement, there was something so remarkable in the increasing glare of Mr. Wopsle's eye, grow so confused, that I could not make it out. Large watch case, and still I could not make it out. Afterwards, and found him waiting for me near the door. "How do you do?" said I, shaking hands with him as we turned down the street together. "See you, Mr. Oh," he returned. "Yes, of course I see you." "It is the strangest thing," said Mr. Wopsle, drifted into his last look again, becoming alarmed. I entreated Mr. Wopsle to explain his meaning. "Whether I should have noticed him at first but for your being there," said Mr. Wopsle, going on in the same lost way. "I can't be positive." Involuntarily I looked round me, as I was accustomed to look round me when I went home. Its mysterious words gave me a chill. "Well, he can't be in sight," said Mr. Wopsle. "He went out before I went off." Having the reason that I had for being suspicious, I even suspected this character. I mistrusted a design to entrap me into some admission. Therefore I glanced at him as we walked on together, but said nothing. I had a ridiculous fancy that he must be with you, Mr. N, till I saw that you were quite unconscious of him. My former chill crept over me again, but I was resolved not to speak yet. Induced me to connect these references with Provies. Of course, I was perfectly sure and safe that Provies had not been there. I dare say you wonder at me, Mr. Then, indeed, I see you do. But it is so very strange. You'll hardly believe what I am going to tell you. I could hardly believe it myself. "Indeed," said I. Indeed, Mr. N, you remember in old times a certain Christmas day, when you were quite a child, and dined at Gargery's, and you remember that there was a chase after 2 convicts, and that we joined in it, and that Gargery took you on his back, and that I took the lead. I remember it all very well, better than he that I except the last cause. And you remember that we came up with the 2 in a ditch, and that there was a scuffle between them, and that the soldiers lighted torches, and put the 2 in the centre, and that we went on to see the last of them, over the back marshes, their faces. "Yes," said I. "Then, Mr. N, one of those 2 prisoners sat behind you tonight. Steady, I thought. I asked him then. The one who had been mauled, he answered readily. And elsewhere I saw him. The more I think of him." "This is very curious," said I, with the best assumption I could put on a it being nothing more to me. I cannot exaggerate the enhanced disquiet into which this conversation threw me. Moments together since the hiding had begun. It was in those very moments when he was closest to me. Keep him out. I then had found him at my elbow. I could not doubt. There. That he was there. Because I was there. And that, however slight an appearance of danger there might be about us, danger was always near and active. I put such questions to Mr. Woplas. When did the men come in? He could not tell me that. He saw me. Over my shoulder he saw the man. Identify him. But he had from the first vaguely associated with me, and known him as somehow belonging to me in the old village time. How was he dressed? Prosperously, but not noticeably otherwise. He thought. In black. Was his face at all disfigured? Well, he believed not. I believed not to. Poor Ned. I thought it likely that a face at all disfigured would have attracted my attention. When Mr. Wopsle had imparted to me all that he could recall or I extract, and when I had treated him to a little appropriate refreshment, after the fatigues of the evening, we parted. It was between 12 and 1 o'clock when I reached the temple, and the gates were shut. No one was near me when I went in and went home. Herbert had come in. I held a very serious council by the fire, but there was nothing to be done, saving to communicate to Wemmick what I had that night found out, and to remind him that we waited for his end. As I made this communication by letter. I wrote it before I went to bed, and went out and posted it. And again no one was near me. Herbert and I agreed that we could do nothing else but be very cautious. And we were very cautious, indeed more cautious than before. If that were a possibility, and I for my part never went to Chinks's Basin, except when I rode by. And then I only looked at Mopont Bank as I looked at anything else. To be continued.